I hope I'm not late though. To tell you I'm grateful. Yeah. At times I lost faith. I just thank God's grace that you always stayed faithful. Yeah. I hope I'm not late though. Hey, just to tell you I'm grateful. At times I lost faith. I just thank God's grace that you always stayed faithful.
Hey, what is up, everybody? It's your boy DV8, and welcome to the Grateful Podcast. So today we are joined by a very good friend of mine and a person who is doing a lot of impact in Namibia, especially when it comes to mission work. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us give it up for Mike Knight.
Hey DV8, how you doing?
Oh, good. How you doing?
Good, thanks, man.
I know it's a little bit awkward, but we got this.
It's all good.
All right, awesome. All right, so as tradition, we always ask this question: what are you grateful for?
Yeah, so this morning, man, I'm grateful for waking up, for the breath in my lungs that God gave me. I have another day to live for Him. Mm-hmm. Super thankful for all the rain that we've been having. Sometimes too much, but we deal with it. I'm thankful to have a place over my head. It's not leaking down on me too much. Yeah.
Now that's pretty good, because I actually woke up this morning feeling some type of way, and just even hearing you saying that you're grateful for all these things actually made me realize that I should be grateful for also the same things that I do have. And I would want to say specifically grateful that I'm able to talk to God candidly and just have a conversation, and even be able to tell Him that there are certain commands that I don't want to obey, but with still having the realization that I want to get to the place where I can obey them. That prayer of just communing with God, of just saying that, Lord, I know that I should not be bitter. I know that I should be merciful, but I don't want to be merciful. But I want to be merciful. So that's one thing I'm grateful for. All right. So let's get into this, and we're talking about mission work. And before even we get deep into that, let's talk a little bit more about you. Like, what was your journey, to getting to know the Lord, and how you got into mission work?
Sure. Yeah. It's a good place to start. So I grew up in a Christian home. Okay. My parents were believers, took us down to the church anytime the doors were open. Sunday morning, Sunday schools, we were there. So I grew up going to youth programs, went to Christian schools growing up, and came to faith before I can even remember. I've always known that I believe in Jesus. Yeah. Right. And so then during my teenage years, I suppose there was a time where I really had to kind of own that faith myself. Yeah. And then just continue to grow in the Lord in that way. I particularly started going on mission trips, short-term mission trips, when I was actually 12 years old. It still to this day astounds me that my parents let me go on an international mission trip on an airplane when I was 12 years old.
That's crazy.
So from very early on, I had those seeds of serving God and living and doing work for God from a very early age. And then when it came time to kind of decide on a career, where am I going to go for university? What am I going to do with my life? Now I had some choices to make. So my father was into computers, software, and whatnot. And so I learned a bunch of programming, little computer games and all this stuff through high school. And I was like, sure, I could go into computers and probably make a good living in tech industry. But then, so I was kind of challenged about that. What am I going to do here? And I heard a story about Steve Jobs, actually. Yeah. So Steve Jobs was starting this new company called Apple out of his garage. And he was looking around for executives for his company. And so he actually targeted the vice president of PepsiCo. Okay. Big guy. And so, and remember, he's starting out of his garage. And so he goes to this guy.
Was the president of Like, he was the president of PepsiCo at that time.
Vice president of PepsiCo at the time. Yes, massive corporation. Sure. Right. So he shows up in his office and he's going to give his pitch to say, well, I want you to come be the CEO for Apple. This little tech company started out of his garage. And so he says, the story from the Pepsi vice president, he says, what was it that turned that made you choose to switch over? And he says, so Steve Jobs said to him, do you want to spend the rest of your life making sugar water, or do you want to come with me and change the world?
Okay, nice.
And that's what caused him to go and join Apple. And so I reflected on that concept or those ideas and said, do I want to spend the rest of my life making software that's going to be obsolete next week, or do I want to live for God and use my career, my vocation for God and change the world?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my call, I feel like, into missions. And so I started out doing youth ministry at my church.
Yeah.
And then my church was coming to Namibia on short-term mission trips.
Oh, okay.
So I've been here a number of times, even before I moved here. And then, during those trips, I kind of fell in love with Namibia and the people and decided, well, let me go try this full time. And so I came over to live here for a year as like a little vision trip and just loved it, had great opportunities to serve God. And and then in 2014, I moved back here full time. Okay. And I have been now lecturing at NETS, that's Namibia Evangelical Theological Seminary. So I've been teaching there and serving with my mission organization called SIM for the last 11 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Like, for some reason, like, it always feels like you've been in Namibia longer than you say that you have, at least doing mission work. Because I always feel like you've been here since 2005. But, you saying that you decided to come like 2014, which sort of like that's kind of like when it's cemented to be like, okay, Mike is now, it's like your presence was now was felt, but it just felt like you've been here longer. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Was there any other country that you were considering, or was Namibia sort of like the go-to?
Yeah, at that point, because I'd been on a number of short-term trips to come here, I really had a heart for Namibia and for the Namibian people. And so, when I decided to go into missions full-time, foreign missions full-time, then I would say I was already in the direction of Namibia. So it was like, how can I get to serve in Namibia?
Okay. Yeah. And like, how was the adjustment period of just like, now you're living in Namibia? Like, what are some of the surprising things that you got to see or experience?
Yeah, and one of the things that actually helped was coming a number of times short term.
Oh, okay.
And seeing, getting to ease my way into the culture.
Yeah.
Right? So I would come for little 2-week trips. But then when I first moved here, there's certainly a lot of kind of cultural differences between America and Namibia. And so some of the things that stick out for me, for example, is just the relationalness of the Namibian culture as opposed to America. Americans are very, to the point. They're very efficient. Let's get things done. Yeah. And you you just pass somebody on the street in Namibia, your greeting just takes you like 25 minutes. How's the family? How's the cows? How's the chickens? But it's great, because you're concerned about people. And so I love that relational aspect of it, but it just takes getting used to.
Yeah.
So I remember one of the first times when there was 2 people I knew in conversation, and I just walked by because for an American, I shouldn't interrupt their conversation. Them. But then I was actually confronted, wait a second, you didn't even greet us when you walked by.
That's crazy.
And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. So it takes a little getting used to some of those kind of things.
Yeah, no, that's kind of interesting because also, just as you're speaking, I was trying to think about how it would be like on the other way around. Because there are times I'll look at them like, we're taking too long to have these conversations. And I could imagine like just having that culture shock when if I was to go to the States and see that happening. So has that sort of like something that you incorporated now in the way that you reach out to people?
So certainly, I think it's, in the sense of now I have to be much more relational so an American might go to try and share the gospel and just say, okay, well, the four spiritual laws, just as whatever, and just kind of get right to the point. But here, we have to have a relationship first. So let's stop. Let me chat with you, learn your name. What do you do? So in that sense, if you're kind of out doing street evangelism or something, you have to make a relational connection before they even care. What you have to say to them. So yes, things like that.
Yeah, totally. So like being a missionary, like I think doing anything for God is like a huge calling. And after taking that calling, challenges can happen. So has there been any kind of like points where you doubted being a missionary, and like what experience like within Namibia would probably made you doubt that maybe am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm really called to and whatnot?
Sure. So I think maybe I could just say for ministry in general, because I think this would apply to more than just missions. But but the big heart for missions is discipling, right? Jesus says, "Go and make disciples," and so discipling people is really my passion. And so when I see disciples, like when I'm trying to walk a road with somebody and disciple them to become more like Jesus, and it just seems like this person is not getting anywhere. Either they're not making any progress, or now, we talked about something and we thought you'd learned and grown, and then you just kind of fall or fail in a particular area. Yeah. And then it just makes me think, man, I suck at this, right? Like, these are the kind of disciples that I'm making. I'm just not doing a very good job at making disciples if they're not even following Jesus. Yeah. And so, that kind of can cause me to say, well, what am I doing here?
So like, how did you like overcome that though?
Well, one of the most helpful things for that is being reminded that actually Jesus went through the same thing, didn't he?
Oh,
right? True. Okay, how many times did he have to go to his disciples and say, "Oh my gosh, you have little faith. Look, guys." Yeah. And so, if Jesus dealt with it, then of course, how could I be any less?
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I don't know, man. I think that's one of the things that I think may not make me doubt my calling, but it can make me become less efficient in it. Where I'm just like, well, there's no point in really reaching out to this person because they are not showing any progress, or if you're gonna fail, why try? But that's a tough one to actually come around. And I'm glad that you mentioned that Christ went through the same thing of people not believing, or actually the whole town's not believing that he's the Messiah, and some even walking away. So it's kind of good to see that we get to share that with him.
And another thing that also helps is remembering those ones where you do have those success stories. Yeah. Where it's just like, okay, that person really got it. Yeah. Right. And so you also see Jesus dealing with that, right? When Peter says, you are the Son of God, and he's like, well, it's God who revealed that to you. It's almost like that. Way to go, man. So just kind of holding on to those moments and realizing, okay, yes, there are moments of success that God is using me to work in people's lives, and that's also affirming.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's actually pretty good. And I think also that's kind of like if you come to a place of like actually praying before you reach out to people as well, and kind of like shows that the battle is not only on you, like, you do have God with you. All right. So what is the thing that you would say probably that, the Western church and can learn from like the Namibian church?
Yeah, so much. Like, I literally, because we often think about missions as the other way around, but it's true actually. And I literally have a file on my desktop that's called like, what can the Western Church learn from Africa? Nice. And so I just keep adding things to that list. So let me just highlight a few that I think. Just from one Westerner's perspective. So the idea of communalism actually is something that African cultures take very seriously. Like, you guys don't, you don't really call it an immediate family and an extended family. You just have family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas we make those distinctions. So people live together. You live with your family. When people get older, they come and they stay. Like when they're grandparents and whatnot, they come and stay with the family.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the Western church maybe is not that good at that. When it comes to our old people, let's be honest, we put them in homes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
There's assisted living homes and stuff, and so maybe there's something there that the West can learn. Another idea is hospitality. I think you guys do hospitality really well. Somebody comes. Okay, so I realize this is also a point where you complain about, right? Somebody comes to your house and they stay at your house, you provide for them, and they eat your food, and I realize you guys are like, man, when is this person going to leave? Okay, but the fact that you're so generous and saying, look, it's my expectation as a host to treat this person well, and I think we see that in the New Testament, that a lot of guys like Paul, he's wandering around as a missionary. And the people are hosting him at their house and taking him in and feeding and providing for them. And so I think, that just generous hospitality that the West can learn. And then a point about the gospel that I want to mention here. So the Western conception of the gospel is very much in terms of legal guilt. Okay. And what I mean by that is we emphasize justification. Right, because you've sinned, you're legally guilty before God, and you need to be justified. You need to be proved or declared righteous. And so Christ's death on the cross allowed for you to be declared righteous in God's sight and clothed in the righteousness of Christ. Right, and so we have this very kind of legal idea, but a lot of other cultures, including some of these African cultures, are more have a more of a concept of shame and honor rather than this kind of guilt system. Yeah. And so they would emphasize other themes. There are also biblical themes of the gospel that have to do with, okay, God is our Father, and now we have a broken relationship with God because of our sin. And so we've shamed God by living in sin. And so we need to have a restored relationship with God. And so Christ certainly provides for that. But then those who are called, then adopted as God's children, because of that restored relationship, now we are living for God in the sense that now we're not living to give shame to God, but we want to live for His name, right? And so some of those kind of themes in the West maybe are a bit more devalued, and so I think we can restore some of the fullness of the gospel by understanding those things.
Yeah, because I actually never thought about it like that. Because now that you mention it, this thing of bringing honor to the group that you're forming, like from a household perspective, where it's like, hey, listen, you need to live in a way that brings honor to our name, and then when you take that same concept into in a church, which say, hey, listen, we are living for God, and you need to live in a way that does honor God. So that's something I didn't make that observation until you mentioned it right now. So yeah,
that's the interesting thing is that with your culture, you're just used to it, and so it's normal for you. Yeah. And until somebody comes from an outside culture to help you see the differences, then you're right. You just don't even think about things differently.
Exactly.
So that's why I love cross-cultural ministry, because it really helps to challenge the way that I've been thinking about things and the way that you've been thinking about things, and we can learn from each other.
Yeah, and take the best from both worlds. Yeah. All right. So here's one that's off the cuff. So in Namibia, there's this idea that the majority of people are Christians, 90% Christian and stuff like that, and so when you come, in fact, I think even when you're preparing to come and do mission work here, it can seem like, what's the point? Most of the people there are Christian already, but we know there's not. So how do you kind of interact with that, with people who believe that they are Christians, but they're really not? They're just culturally Christian. How do you engage in that? Yeah.
Sure. And I think, so let me take a step back a little bit, there's a big push in the mission world today to be going out towards what we would call unreached or least reached peoples, those who have no access to the gospel. Right. And so, yes, in Namibia, there's a church on every corner, right? Like you said, 90% Christian, right? And so does Namibia really need missionaries or mission workers to come anymore? And that is a question that I have to face, that all of any mission workers you come across in Namibia have to face. But I think one of the things that we focus on then, because of the context, is actually discipleship. The idea of not necessarily like those 90% Christians, how well do they really grasp the gospel? How well are they actually following Jesus? Right? Are 90% of Namibians actual, like, passionate Bible believing Christ followers? Don't really think that's the case. If you look at some of the other social statistics and whatnot, right? True. So working on discipleship and helping them to have a deep faith and not just a faith, we would say, a nominal, in name only, that it's just a tradition that they do on a Sunday morning. So we're helping them to get into the Bible for themselves. A lot of Christians just go and sit in church, but that's the only time they ever, even if they even bring a Bible to church, right? So helping people to engage the scriptures themselves, have their own personal relationships with God and prayer and kind of learning what it means to walk with Jesus and to live kind of a Christ-like, godly life. The other emphasis that we would have then is actually helping the church in Namibia to become part of God's global mission, right? And saying, look, you call yourself 90% Christian. Well, how well are we now involved in that Great Commission and being involved? So how can we help Namibian churches to be mission-minded and be sending out missionaries around the world? So those are a few of the themes then that we would kind of focus on in this kind of a context.
No, that's pretty good to hear. Like that we have also, they're looking at Namibia to sending out missionaries into the world. So I'm trying to think. I think I know of 2 people that left Namibia to become missionaries. So that's pretty dope. Right. So when we think of mission work, it's usually seen as something that's dangerous. So have you sort of like experienced any, dangerous situations or even difficulty when it just comes to being a missionary in Namibia?
Okay, so Namibia, again, being a 90% Christian, is certainly not one of those places where you feel like your life is threatened because you're Christian. There are many of those places in the world, absolutely. And those are often the places that need the gospel the most, here in Namibia, it's not, though, immune from resistance to the gospel. So I remember going to do one outreach at a school in the north. We were going to do a gospel program assembly for the school. And so we went in to talk to the principal and they basically said, no, we don't want that here, and kind of chased us away. And as we were leaving with the bus, kids were literally like throwing rocks at the bus as we left. Wow. So it was the most resistance I've ever had. Usually kids come, chasing the bus with smiles and like, bye, but no, this time was a little different. But that's about the most.
I mean, that's even wild, because that is a crime here. And I think that's kind of like one of the things that you get to see in Namibia, where it's like, even if someone is being persecuted for their faith, like the law is not on their side. So we're fortunate that we're living in a country that, even though it's a secular country, it's a country that like gives us a lot of religious liberty and also protection. And I did hear some situations where some churches have been somewhat persecuted, but also that's a whole other conversation. So we'll probably get into that another time.
Sure.
So how can people back in the States support mission work beyond just giving financially?
Sure. So, I mean, one of the biggest things that I think of is, look, this is God's work. Like I said before, it's not just dependent on me. So just prayer support by like bringing myself and the mission, the ministries that we're doing before God's throne and saying, look, God, this is your work. So you're the one who has to change people's hearts. So, so I have a big team of prayer supporters back in the States that are helping support me in prayer. And also just don't forget about me, you know, drop me an email that says, hey, we love what you're doing. You know, keep up the good work. It's always helpful just to be remembered and encouraged.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you also like keep in connection with your mission partners, telling them like, oh, this is where I'm going today and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I send out literally a monthly newsletter just to update people back home about what's going on and what I'm doing and how they can pray for me and those kind of things.
All right, cool. So now let's get now a little bit personal.
Okay.
So now talking about you. So how has being in Namibia and being a missionary in Namibia sort of like changed or impacted your faith?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is just how, just that faith concept, that trusting in God for everything. I think, when I first came over, some of our early trips, we were working together with some South African, like Afrikaner missionaries. And I'm telling you, some of those people, I don't know if you know any Afrikaner missionaries, but those, I don't know what the church tradition that they've come from or what's built this faith into them, but some of those people that I've come across can literally like when Jesus says, Peter, step out of the boat, like they just like, oh yeah, I'm jumping. Yeah. And God's just going to catch us. Like just the faith that they live with, we're just going to walk forward and how God has led us and just trust that God's going to provide for our needs, that God's going to uphold us. And so I love that faith. And I know, I don't have it. I still feel like I want my security blanket, right? I want to know that, I have some savings in the bank that can take care of me. I can always just, jump on a plane and go back to my safe little place. But just that faith of being able to step out and say, look, I'm going to go like God called me to. And he's going to work it out. He's going to provide for us as we go. Has really been a challenge for my faith.
Yeah. And like, has it grown in any way?
I think my faith. I mean, I certainly think so. I like to think so. I think maybe when I first came, I was more like I was saying, and hopefully I've grown in just being able to rest in God and His provision, that He'll take care of me. So as a missionary, a mission worker in Namibia, I'm self-supported, so I don't get paid by SIM or by NETS. I raise my own support back home. So yes, there are people in the States who give donations to support the mission. And in that way, it really is a faith-based income because God's the one who puts it on people's hearts to give. I'm not like trying to convince them to give and like pulling their arm to say, oh, won't you please give to the mission? But I ask them to pray and say, hey, you pray to God, and if God places it on your heart to give generously to help support. And so in that way, I'm entirely dependent on God for my provision. And so some of the stories that have come up through that have really helped me to trust God more and say, look, he's got this. Because
I'm actually currently reading a book on that, and it's a tough one. Like to not only go to somebody and ask them to support the work, but to actually bring it before God. It's like, God, take me to the person who you want to support this mission, and like going into that meeting like with God's approval. And if you walk out with somebody saying that I don't want to do this, then that that's not the person who God wants to support this mission. So that one is kind of like it's something.
Yeah, and especially in this context. So in a Namibian context, giving to support missions is not really in the mindset, like built into our mindset.
Yeah.
Because in our context, like what we're used to here is missionaries are Western people that come with funds and come with resources.
Yeah.
Right. They're not the ones that we give to support. So now, say a Namibian wants to go out and do foreign missions, and they approach a church and say, can you help support me in mission? We really have to change that mindset to say the church actually sends out missionaries, and so they need to support those missionaries as well. And friends and family, like imagine, going with your university degree back to your family and say, hey, can you give me money to support me to go into missions?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's going to be a hard conversation.
Exactly.
Right. And so we have to really change that mindset to say, no, that it's our job as the church, not just the institutional church, but our job as the people of the church to send out missionaries by supporting them financially.
Yeah, no, that's true. So what is probably one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about missionaries that you could probably clear up?
And I'll go right along those lines. I think the biggest misconception about missionaries is that they look like me.
Yeah.
That it's a white face coming from the West to a place like Namibia, but missions has changed. Maybe that's how it was back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
But the face of missions has changed. I was recently at a global missions conference, and I was in the minority.
Yeah.
That missions today is people being sent from everywhere to anywhere, right? So there's Brazilians doing mission in Angola and Mozambique, and there's Malawian missions. Even in our own mission, we have Malawian missionaries going to Mozambique. We have Korean missionaries going all over the world. Like missionaries now, Nigerian missionaries that are serving in Chad and other places, and so there's stuff like this that missions has just become so global and so international that mission workers now are no longer just Western people that come with resources, but it's any one of us can go anywhere that God calls us on missions.
Yeah, man, because that's kind of crazy thing as well. Saying that missions have changed so much that you have, African countries now going to Western countries.
Absolutely.
To go and spread the gospel, which feels like almost backwards in a sense. Where it's this, I would actually would like to see even a series just documenting that of how that interaction would look like. And especially in the US, which again, at some point had Christian, I don't want to say Christian foundation, and there's some people who still, just like Namibians, would say that, hey, I am a believer. I don't have to give my life to Christ. And it's and then you pretty much have to give them the gospel again to understand so they understand where they are.
Yeah, sometimes I would say you have to get them unsaved before you can get them saved. Exactly.
True. That's very true. So what is one of the lessons that God has taught you while you were here doing work?
I think one of the biggest things would probably be some of the faith concepts that we've talked about earlier, and kind of challenging my faith, as well as some of the things that we mentioned about Westerners being able to learn from a Namibian context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on a personal thing,
I didn't really like that question. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. And now let's talk about something which is a big thing, because I do think that a lot of Namibians who may be called into missions, and almost everybody who I've seen been called into missions has been sort of hesitant to take the call. So what advice would you give to that person who probably feels the call but is hesitant to go through with it?
Sure. So I think one of the first questions is, what is the hesitancy about? Is it a danger thing, like we had mentioned, that it can be dangerous? And then in that sense, we need to trust we're entrusting our lives to God, right? You know, Paul says to live is Christ and to die is gain.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to give up your life for the sake of the mission? And then just kind of being challenged in that sense. Is it a financial thing that I would say, you know, I kind of want that safety net. I don't feel like you're scared about trying to raise support and whatnot. Is that your hesitancy? But then again, are we trusting in God for our provision? And there's lots of other ways to be involved in mission as well that don't necessarily require raising support. So have you looked into some of those options? Or is it family issues? Maybe my family doesn't want me to go on mission. They're like, no, you need to get a paying job and help support the family. Then, you know, remember some of the things that Jesus was talking about when he says, look, you got to love me more than you love your family, right? So, some of it depends on, well, what is the hesitancy? But I think there's good biblical calls to any of those things that might be a stumbling block to missions. Well, let's go back to the Bible and see how that challenges us in our faith and trusting God.
Sure. I mean, the thing about that answer is like, it's such a straightforward answer, like, because like I can imagine somebody, even like me, like expecting sort of like an answer that's going to be like, you know, one that is encouraging, but one that's very simple, like that you give, like, you know, this is what the word says, and then go back to that. And I think sometimes we try to engage we don't really want to engage with the word. We want something a little bit more. It's like, but the answer is so simple, you know.
Yeah, so. and I can't sugarcoat it. Look, I mean, you look at Paul's life. He was a missionary, and you go through stoned, shipwrecked, you know, beaten, all these things. And look, mission work is not easy. It's hard, or ministry work in general. It's hard emotionally, personally, because you're investing yourself in other people's lives. I can understand why people would hesitate and pull back from that. But to be honest, what else are we here for? Right? You know, and do I want to be making sugar water or do I want to be changing the world? And just to go out there and say, look, Jesus called us. Jesus says, go and make disciples. And do you really believe that Jesus, the life with Christ, is actually the most satisfying life? Well, look, there's people out there that don't have that. If I really believe that Jesus is what's best for them, then I have to go. I'm compelled to go. I don't have another choice. No, that's very true. Like, I think just even like boiling it down to that question, like, is Jesus the most important thing? If the answer is yes, then everything else just kind of like falls into place. And also thinking about, like, we look around the world, it's a dark place, right? You just go on the news and you see how broken and corrupt this world is. And yet, so we pray, your kingdom come, your will be done. Right. And so that prayer is God's light coming into the world to push back that darkness. Right. That is the gospel mission, right? So God uses us. He gives us a chance to be a part of that. Right. And so, yes, maybe there's some reasons for hesitancy, but this is actually the most exciting adventure that you can be involved in your life, right? Working together with God, with Jesus, to push back that darkness, to bring his light into people's lives. And that's just super exciting to me. I mean, now that you paint it like that, it's like, okay, let's get into ministry. Let's get into mission work. I feel amped up now. Great.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to go into some, just quick questions. Feel free to answer them on the fly, and whatever. So let's go. So what is the wildest or funniest thing that has happened to you since moving to Namibia?
Natus. just wild and crazy. But that was really my welcome to Namibia experience, when I had to go and when I bought a car and had to go and register the car and show up at 6:30 a.m. to get in line to go for my roadworthy test. Finally got there at lunchtime, into this, and then they went on break for lunch. Oh no. And then they come back after lunch, they pop open the bonnet and they say, no, your engine's too dirty. We're we're not even gonna test it. So I was like, you've got to be kidding me right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So man, that was like, welcome to Namibia for me.
That's great because I thought it was gonna be how many times you took the driver's test or.
No, fortunately I can drive on my license. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool stuff. Okay. So if your missionary journey was a movie, what would the title be?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think I would come up with, I don't know if this is it's not very catchy or anything,
Okay.
but living to die.
Okay.
Because one of my favorite verses, Galatians 2:20 says, for I am crucified with Christ.
Yeah.
Therefore I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. Right? And so the life of a Christian is dying.
Yeah.
But dying actually means real life.
Yeah.
And so that's just been, I think, one of the themes of my journey is dying to myself and dying to my own desires and actually letting Christ's life live through me. So I don't know, maybe come up with something more creative. But.
No, I think that's pretty good. So which actor would you want to play you?
Oh, goodness.
I have a few in mind.
You have a few in mind?
Yeah, but yeah.
Can I just throw out the idea? Like,
Okay.
how about Chris Evans, man? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Okay, Chris Evans is not a bad pick.
right.
He's not a bad, like he's one of my favorite actors. So that's a pretty good one. I was gonna say Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Well, my other option was like Jason Statham. Okay.
Okay, cool.
I'm along those lines.
Because I think like getting somebody like a big guy like Vin Diesel
Sure.
to become like an American missionary, to Namibia, that is just like I'm expecting like action.
Okay.
So we can find a way to make your life like into an action movie.
But I'm not sure that he would want to kind of get this physique. I don't know how much of an actor, like, what do you say, those method actors he's going to be?
I don't think so. All right, cool. All right, next one is what's one Namibian food that shocked you the most?
Shocked.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say, I'm not a big fan. I have tried matangara.
Yeah.
Not a fan, sorry. Mopani worms, another one. I'm not entirely against Mopani worms.
Yeah.
Not a fave, but it's like, okay, we're gonna eat caterpillars. All right.
Yeah, but so the weird thing about that is that there are people who would, I think generally those who are new to Namibian cuisine would rather have matangara or tripe rather than mopani worms.
Yeah.
But for you it's like the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a bit spongy and it's a texture thing for me.
Yeah, because I mentioned that before, like it's the texture and just like I don't get it, but
all right. That means more for you.
Yeah. All right. Cool. And what is your favorite word or saying in Namibian language?
Okay. So it's more South African language, but Namibian owns it. But dirmakar is a great word because there's really no direct translation, and it just sounds like everything's messed up. Just the word itself. Yeah. And then I love the word kapunda. It's just it's great. It just describes exactly what it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Love it.
Oh my gosh. That is funny. That is hilarious because you never realize how much a word fits something until
it totally fits.
All right, it fits so well. Oh man. Yeah. So to return the favor, I would say my favorite word, like English, will be flabbergasted.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because it's one of those things as well. Like you really can't describe it. It's just like. Yeah, it's you're so shocked that saying shocked is not enough. All right, cool. And then what's one thing you thought you couldn't live without in America but realized you actually don't need?
Sure. So some things on that side are a bit more necessary because, for example, things are so spread out. So you need a car to be able to get around, right? Unless you live in a very urban area and you just walk like Manhattan. Yeah. Okay. But here, thousands of people live without cars. They get around with taxis or hiking or whatever.
Yeah.
And now I do have a vehicle here, but just kind of realized, it's maybe something I don't need.
Yeah.
So another common thing you'd hear from Westerners or Americans, okay, a hot shower. I really like a hot shower. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's good. But is it a need? For some people, maybe it is, right? But there's thousands of people that bath out of a bucket, right?
Yeah.
And they're good with that, And so I go on these camping trips out to weddings and stuff and bath out of a bucket, and it's okay.
Dude, and that's the one thing I kind of say about you. Like, it feels like you have adapted very well to Namibia. Like, you've attended multiple weddings, outside of
Love
Windhoek.
Namibian weddings.
And I have not heard a single complaint. Like, I think you even complain less than Namibians. Because I remember when I went to a hero wedding for the first time, I was livid. I was like, where is this? Where is that? And it's like, okay, yeah. But you were just chilled. So.
Yeah, I think I'm more aware of the cultural gap that I need to be able to bridge and adapt to maybe than you would be.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right. So imagine you had 30 seconds to convince someone to go on a mission trip. How would you do it?
Okay, one of my favorite slogans for that is one we use with, it's called Teen Mission Namibia when we take youth out on mission, would be to say, Jesus said it, we're doing it, come join us.
Okay.
So it's Jesus' command to us, right? Yeah. And so let's get involved, come and be involved in obeying Christ's command. But then also we could go back to some of the things we were saying before about just the excitement involved in helping bring God's light into this dark world.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So for our final question, what's one thing about Namibia that more people need to know?
Yeah, okay. Look, when you go to the West or America, I would have to say, there's a certain conception of just Africa in general, right? Because what we see are the UN commercials with these little, malnourished children with pot bellies and flies on their faces. Trevor knows, tells you about that, right? And so just recognizing, look, guys, Namibia is way more developed than you think, right? Yeah. We have good internet, we have good roads, and all this kind of stuff. I go to the cinema, same as you, right? Yeah. I go to a grocery store to buy my food. So you don't have to feel like you're coming to deepest, darkest Africa when you come to Namibia. You show up in Windhoek and you're like, oh, this could be a city in the States, right? So it's a lot more developed than you think it is.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right. So to close this off, what is the one thing that you would like to just tell people, like in general? If you can just take a moment to share your heart.
Sure. So I think one of the things I'm most passionate about in missions is we've been talking about helping Namibians to get involved in mission. And so that is empowering churches and walking alongside churches to be able to send out missionaries, but also just helping Namibians to get a sense of, look, this is God's call for your life as well, right? As if I'm following Jesus, Jesus has said, go and make disciples. So you can be involved in missionary work. Don't just think of missions as a foreign person coming to our country, but how can you be involved in mission work, whether that's locally in sharing the gospel to your neighbors, across the fence, or going to another country. Like, you can do that. The door is open for you to do that. Don't just write that off as a career opportunity, because historically that's the mindset of missions. So I really want to encourage you in that way to get involved in mission, however you can. And then maybe I could also say, just in terms of helping Namibians to relate to their mission, their foreign mission workers that they know, those people here. One of the challenges in cross-cultural work is that you actually become an intercultural, like in between cultures kind of a person. So as a missionary in Namibia, I come here and I tell people I've lived here 11 years, and they're like, oh, well, you're Namibian now.
Yeah.
Right. And we're used to people, it's your home turf, right? And so I adapt to your culture. Yes. But don't forget that I'm still half American.
Yeah.
Right. I still have that Americanness in me. And so if you really want to understand your missionary friends, then learn to understand that other half of them. And that'll help you really connect, I think. So, for example, we have an American holiday called Thanksgiving that we don't celebrate in Namibia. So I try and host an American Thanksgiving every year and invite people to try turkey, maybe for the first time, right? And they all come and no, it's not a braai. You're not going to find red meat. You're going to find a lot of vegetables, right? Yeah. But it's an opportunity for you to say, okay, this is something that he appreciates. Some part of his culture that I can now learn about him. Yeah. Or I love watching American football. And so I love that my man Deviate here has gotten on board. He's watched many football games with me.
Go Patriots.
That's right. and so being able to join with me in the things that I love and enjoy from my culture and just helping to adapt the other way. Like I spend so much time adapting to the Namibian way. Are there ways that you can maybe adapt back into their culture and their way? So hopefully that can help with your friendships with foreigners as well. So,
all right.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome. Mike, thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely be having you back. So as long as you're in the country.
Great. I look forward to it.
Awesome stuff. All right, guys, that's all that we have for you today. So if you guys are interested in mission work, definitely, jump on in. I think what's the 3 words? Jesus said it.
Jesus said it. We're doing it. Come join us.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.